I'm Russ.
And I'm Danny.
And this is the Memory Makers Podcast.
The show focused on helping you create amazing customer experiences and make more memories.
Welcome to Memory Makers Podcast. So the jingle's the same, but the genre is different. So
this is interesting because now it's going to be like, what genre is going to come next in the great mind of Russ and the things that bang around up there.
Do you think I have time to learn how to play the steel drums?
Is that a reference to something? Or
No, I'm gonna do a little reggaeton on the next one then. It's not like I'm gonna bring in like really obscure like monk throat, pipe singing or whatever that stuff is. Like we'll get deep.
When it comes to steel drums, the great part about it is that all you have to learn is one set of notes, because if you're like Michael Scott from The Office, he's got that episode feeling hot, 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 hot.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not saying it's going to be layered and complex. It's not going to be like Andy later in that where he's playing Ole Ole and going to town on it. It's going to be very beginners. So
beginners. Well, so I have a quick story that I wanted to share. Recently, I was attending and speaking at an event up in Toronto, and while I was there, we were talking about, as a group, some of the snack foods that they have in Canada that we don't have in the U.S. And one of the things that was brought up was ketchup chips, which some of the people who were from the U.S. who were at this event thought were disgusting, did not like them at all. And then I learned about something called all-dressed chips, which I heard was very good. Apparently, it's kind of like, if you think about a bagel and having everything seasoning where it's a little bit of all of it, that's kind of what all-dressed chips are, I guess.
I can get behind that.
If you're from Canada and I'm describing this wrong, I apologize, but that was my interpretation of it.
Well, they're too nice to say anything to you about that.
Oh, yes.
Jenna Boyo will go, no, I have no problem. I have no problem saying, Danny, you're way off base on that one. And we love Jenna for that.
I got to the airport and I bought these chips, brought them home so that my wife and I could both try them, because we always like in trying snack foods in different countries that we visit that we would never experience here in the U.S. And I will give it a 2 thumbs up report. I really enjoyed the all-dressed chips from Canada. I specifically got the Ruffles brand because I was told those were the best brand to get.
Got it. All right. Well, we're going to have to see if we can find some of these on Amazon.com and just make it a tasting for the whole office. Well, I love being open-minded and trying new food, from that, as I do a shameless segue into our topic here. And that is going to be about continual self-development and what to do with all these new things that continually come your way. So I think most of you who are familiar with us know Danny and I, as well as the C-Dub team, are very large proponents of personal and professional development, getting better every day, trying to improve upon how we tackle problems or analyze things or show up for the people that we love. And this industry in particular is one with such a great evolving history, and it's so dynamic, and it feels like we live in the world of fun, and so we're constantly looking at new ways to surprise and delight, but getting not only to trade shows so you can see what new products and things are out there for your guests, but going to the education sessions are so critical to keep your finger on the pulse of what's shaping the industry as a whole. What are you seeing within certain types of new ventures that you want to take on, so you can learn from others. And it's so easy to get caught up with some really great ideas when you go to these educational sessions. You're energized, you've got these notes, you're ready to get back and change the world sometimes with your team members. But how do we actually prioritize and execute this? If I'm going to steal, a line from Jocko and his great work, is how do we prioritize and execute what's most important, and then set about an actual plan to implement these things, so that way it isn't something that just stays in the notebook, or it isn't something that gets a week and a half's worth of lip service and then dies on the vine, so to speak. And Danny, you had come across in your personal development and professional development discovery through a gentleman of the name of John Maxwell, who is extremely well known. So if you haven't read his work, probably one of the top 4 all-time kind of established authorities on, development and teamwork and culture and the whole bit. But he actually has a framework that he recommends people do when they're trying to go through a process like this. And do you mind giving me the executive summary of what that looks like from him?
I mind very much. Before I do that, I do want to make a couple quick points. You mentioned Jocko. For those who are unfamiliar, Jocko Willink, who is the author of a book called Extreme Ownership, and also a book called
Dichotomy of Leadership. Yeah.
Yes, Dichotomy of Leadership. So those books, fantastic. I really like Jocko as an author and the things that he brings to the business world. And then the other thing I do want to hit on, because I talk to operators who come to trade shows, and one of the first things they do, and rightfully so, is looking at the list of educational seminars, like who's speaking, what are they speaking on, what are the topics. And what I find happens a lot, and I totally understand this, is someone will look and say, well, I've seen this person speak on this before. I'm not going to go back and watch that again. Totally makes sense, right? Especially if there's something else happening during that time that you think might be more applicable for your business. However, I do want to say that even if you have seen a presentation before, go back and see it again. And the reason why is where you are in your business at this point could be very different than the first time you saw it. So you're going to take away different things. And there could be also new pieces in there that weren't in the presentation the first time you saw it. You never know what tiny, small little nugget or tip is going to be the thing that reduces costs or makes you more efficient or increases revenue, profitability. And that 30, 45, 60 minutes of that presentation, however long it is, could be well worth it.
Well, and I think a friend of ours, Mark Keene, always says we need to be reminded a lot more than we need to be told, right? You only need to be told once, but you need to be reminded multiple times in order for those things to permeate and set in. And so getting a chance or another swing at bat or another bite at the apple of content, to your point, Danny, you're going to be in a different place than you were when you've heard some of that content. I think it's why we see a ton of people continually come back, multiple times over for Amusement 360, not only because there's a lot that they can sink their teeth into, but if you go and get this content when you're just in the industry and you're learning what this actually looks like, and you're just trying to keep your eyelids above water as far as information intake, and then versus when you're, okay, now we're actually building the building and now we're actually opening. I mean, those are such distinct phases. And then, okay, now we've been open for 5 years, right? And that's no small difference in between. There's just your personal experiences through all of that will help shape and open you up to new ideas that can come back through. And the folks that we see be the most successful are continually assuming that they don't have the answers and want to look at, outwardly for what is going on so they can make another informed decision. And that, I think, is such a great mindset, but you have to be able to use this framework in order to do something with it. And so if you end up going to one of these events, and you end up doing this exercise, I always say, hey, we've got to do this within the first 24 hours. Otherwise, any notes that I have or things that I thought were really important takeaway segments, I may lose the context in the moment of what that was. And so while those things are still fresh in your mind, it's how do we actually catalog this down and then start to get a sense of, what we want to do with it.
So let's walk through the framework then, and so everyone can understand what that is. And so it's an acronym, ACT, A-C-T. And again, I got this from John Maxwell. I think I was watching a keynote that he did at some event. I was watching virtually. I saw this afterwards. And he talked about how to use ACT in order to prioritize, right? So you come home or you finish an event, you got notebook filled with notes and ideas and all these things that you want to do. And this is about how to prioritize. So A stands for apply, C stands for change, and T stands for teach. So what you're going to do is first you're going to start with A. You're going to go through your notebook and you're going to write the letter A next to everything that you want to apply in your business. So go through every note page, write A next to all those items.
So those the good ideas of, ooh, hey, we need to be doing that, like flex pricing for our schedule. Like that's something that we can apply.
Exactly. Or yeah, any new thing that you want to apply to your business, or we need to apply email marketing, because maybe that's something we don't do yet, or just different ideas that you want to apply. Then you've got C, which is change. Maybe this is something you're doing that you need to adjust your approach or change your pricing or change the way that you package your parties, whatever it is. Write a C next to all the things that you want to change in your business. And then the last one is T for teach. You're going to go through and write a T next to all the things that you need to teach to others in your business, whether that's your GM or your supervisors, shift managers, frontline staff, doesn't matter who it is, all the things that you need to teach within the business. So now you've got this notebook and it's filled with a bunch of notes with A's, C's, and T's. So then on a new page or in a document, wherever you're going to put this, you're going to start by putting together the list of write all the A's out in one column, write all the C's out in another column, and all the T's, so that they're all combined together in one place. Then the last step you're going to do is prioritize. Start with the A's and all the things that you're going to apply, and go through and prioritize what is the #1 most important thing to apply that will have the biggest impact right now, and maybe even make all the other things that you're going to apply easier down the line. Then what is #2, #3, #4? Prioritize all the way down. Then go to C. Do that same prioritization. What's the most important thing to change? Second most, third most, all the way down. And then T, what's the most important thing to teach? The second most, third most, all the way down. And then you have your priority list. So what you're going to do is start with #1, the #1 thing to apply, the #1 thing to change, and the #1 thing to teach. Those 3 things, do them. Just do that and nothing else, and do it until it's implemented. And like most things in business, it's not going to happen, do it once and it's over. You're going to have to probably repeatedly do it, or it'll take a little bit of time, or repeatedly teach something. You're never going to teach something once and it's over. Do that for the few days or the week or the month that it's going to take to get those done. Then move on to #2 on the list, and then move on to #3. And that is your business growth priority list for the next 1, 3, 6, 12 months into the future. And that is the best way I've found to take all these ideas, prioritize them in a really practical way, and start implementing them immediately.
I think what I like about this framework is that it helps take the elephant one bite at a time, right? And make it a little bit more approachable. And so now knowing, oh, hey, these are things that we need to teach. Great. I can start having some conversations with our team. We can get alignment on that, and we can reinforce those things. You know, teaching is a relatively low barrier to entry. It just requires more effort over time to consistently communicate what the expectations and outcomes that you want to have from that knowledge is. And then,
you know what's great about teaching? I apologize.
No, do it.
On your toes there, is if in order for you to teach something to someone else, you have to truly understand it. And if you are finding you're struggling with how to teach this to your staff, you may not fully understand or comprehend it strong enough yet in a way that makes that teaching powerful. And so that's something I like to think about too, is that your understanding of that idea, project, thing that you're going to do needs to be strong enough where you can teach it to another person in your business.
Yeah. The one other piece, you know, you and I have harped on pretty consistently of this a couple of times already, and I'll do it for a third, but is do this within 24 hours of getting this content in your brain, so that way you are closer connected to the impact that you felt it would have, and you're keeping yourself in the moment of so that way you can leverage this and be in tune with what really is going to have the biggest impacts for you. The other piece that we would definitely recommend that you do is if you're there, let's say there's 2 or 3 from your team that have gone to an event, you've hit up the majority of the same sessions, you may have hit different sessions, whatever, have everybody go through this exercise individually first, and then come together strategically to review what's the alignment, you know, what's out of, you know, what aren't we on the same page on? Oh, I have this as a 3, you have it as a 7. Why is that? So we can start to get a little bit more mutually shared understanding around what maybe is the, you know, the bigger roots of some of these issues or things that we're seeing. And so make sure that if you've had everybody in the room, have them all do this exercise and then come back and collaborate together, because that will ensure, one, that you have better group buy-in, you're empowering them to be a little bit more autonomous, but we are also not making decisions in a vacuum, which is a great thing to avoid if you can.
So if we look at this, why is this important? You know, there's a phrase that people like to say of knowledge is power. I actually think that's untrue. That's not real. Knowledge is potential power, right? And that that knowledge is only powerful and useful if you put it into action. And the best way to do that is to prioritize, because if we have all these notes from an event or a webinar or whatever the thing is that we're doing, and we try to do it all at once, none of it will actually get done. We'll get burned down and just get distracted by other things. And so that prioritization is so crucial in order to make those positive impacts in the business. And I think that seems like a great spot to go ahead and button up this episode.
I like it. Yeah, I enjoy the strategic application of these kinds of things, and so yeah, this makes my heart happy. So thank you for your service today, Danny.
You're welcome for my service.
There you go. If you want to keep an eye out for more of this content coming your way, we have our episodes that are dropping weekly, so be sure to come back and hear more of the insights as we're bringing on guests and outside speakers as well. And yeah, that's what keeps this whole ship moving, is you guys engaging and gaining benefits. So,
and if you like what you heard, don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review if you would as well.
And we will not say no to 5 stars as well.
If you have any ideas for future episodes, whether that's topics or guests that you'd like to see, shoot us a message on our social media channels, and we'll get that into the hopper.
Big shout out to Mike on the 1s and 2s running the Ultranet behind us, and we will catch you on the next one, Troublemakers.